So yeah, that gold is what made them decide that they were gonna come back. I'm sure you know that metal and greed, especially the gold, the conducive power of it, and just the greed of it. There's been so much atrocious bloodshed on this planet at the quest of gold. It's pathetic. The gold is the known world method of trade over everything, including platinum. Gold is the symbolic representation of sunlight, which, as weird as it may sound, the sun has proven that it reflects on the moon just as much as it reflects on Earth. That's something, isn't it? Okay, my point being is that everything is synonymous with Earth as far as the moon goes outside of our perception according to our limited senses. And that's what it means. That's the reason why that lady, the melanated lady that they found in this ship, had certain type of, if you will, bone structures implementation. It's like a breathing apparatus or some type of spiritual energy path to give her life force. That's what it seemed like to me. That's just what I pick up. I also see a face right here. There's an eye right there. There's an eye there. There go an eyebrow right there. And then you can see a nose. And then it look like the encapsulation of a mummy. Look at that, like a mummy sarcophagus. Do you see? Like this will be the face right here. And then it'll be the body structure. This will be like a lid that could open up, put the body in there. Do you see that? Even though it's a spaceship, it looks like a sarcophagus, if you will. But that's just me. My brain see things other people's don't. You don't have to see that if you don't, but I do. But my thing is that I'm sure it was the gold that made them come back, and the finding of the ship was a bonus.
Where this mothership was abandoned, and
the reason I say that is because they would have went to the moon looking for minerals.
Just it really blows me away because it kind of shows you that they were using a lot of gold, a lot of resources, and then it's also showing you that God placed a lot of those resources on other planets too. And so what we have there was basically it was a hot area, and that's why Apollo 20 was needed, and that's why the other missions that they did led up to Apollo 20, because they wanted to get that gold, that technology, they wanted that area. And so it's very shocking. This is to show you how big that ship was. I mean, it's huge. This was the harbor point of New York City, the Manhattan.
Well, let me tell you something so you can understand. See, the limitation of the senses of man is based on the limitations of his conceptualization that's being formatted from material that's being pushed at him. When the person starts seeing the universe with its natural eye of observation, when you look into space at night and see all those stars, you got to know right there that there's something bigger than what we know here on Earth. The ideal of a ship being that big doesn't startle me at all. With me knowing the vastness of our universe, I can even see a ship that made that one look small. I just can. I mean, really, I can. That's even small. These are the type of ships that's flying around our planet right now, so far away, but they're deploying smaller ships, and the smaller ships deploy smaller ships. Because I tell you guys, I got them real little. Littler than pennies that fly around in my house. They so little. Let me see how I can describe how little they are. They little like a half of a peanut. That's how little they are. And they're white. And sometimes they get bigger. And they be real black then. Darker than dark. But the fact that I see these things right in my own path of observation makes it where when I see this on television or YouTube, not hard for me to fathom or believe. When I look at the stars at night and see how many stars there is, it shows me there's no limitation to what you should be able to fathom. Any thought that you could fathom, and you should be able to make it manifest. That's why I really be in control of what I think about. It's one of the reasons I keep to myself, because other people could put shit in your mind that you could keep thinking about even though you don't want to. So you got to be in control of who you talk to and then give the opportunity to create thought patterns in your concept. That's really important. Because someone will create a concept in your mind that make you believe when you see a ship this big since they never built it, it can't be done. And someone who comes with the concept of talk to get this initiated will be scoring on the frown dome, like a person who's trying to tell the world, you need to stop looking at somebody else to be your God because you are your own God. I hate to be the one to tell you that, but when the universe made you, it made you your own God. And by you trying to create a God outside of yourself, for yourself, you are doing yourself a grave injustice. Now, if you do want another God outside of yourself, at least let it be another human being that's right on earth that's going to be able to talk to you and say, well, okay, I'm here to help you. You need to understand that since you got help from me and I got help from you, that make us all gods with small g's, because God put everything that was necessary of herself and himself into each every one of us, so we can all find strength and unity with each other to keep going. That's the reason why when you see a big ship like this pull up and park next to your city, the only reason why you'll be afraid that they ought to do something wrong is because if it was your ship and you pulled up next to somebody's city like that, you know what your intention would be. Okay? So we all know where that fear comes from. It's come from the enemy inside of you.
An area. And if you look at some of the largest buildings that are in the world, they're nowhere near as big as this ship. And that's saying quite a bit. This thing is absolutely huge. It was so big that you were able to put about a half a city of people in it.
And let's not leave out the fact that the pilot was a melanated female, and they also said that they found remnants of worship of the goddess on the moon. So it all makes sense. And they're still there practicing that underground too. Like when I go to see my mother, they take me underground all the time. We go downstairs. We go down. We don't go up.
Just massive, just very, very big. And it's kind of showing you that. The top part of it, or the hill part of it, was actually made in gold. So it's really just very powerful stuff there. All right, so what we're looking at here is called, first of all, from what I understand, it's an old world structure, and it had something to do with basically a meeting ground place, if you will. If you've ever gone to an airport, usually the first thing you go to when you go to the airport is that you go to the airport building. That's what this was. Basically, it was a place where people gathered when they were about to take off. The Germans discovered the ruins of it, and so what the Germans did is that they basically remodeled it. And when they remodeled it, they used it as a base of headquarters when they were extracting resources up.
They were saying in one book that I read that the pyramids that was in the Giza Plateau was aligned with pyramids that was on Mars, as well as pyramids that was on the moon. And they said that the alignment of the pyramid created electromagnetic energy grids as to where if a person positioned his body correctly and followed the right rituals and consumed the right foods and said the right incantations at the right time, and it takes very wise sages and priests to put this together for you, you could actually jump through the pyramid from this planet and ride on a cosmic vessel spiritually to the moon. And then once on the moon, you could take on a manifestation there. This was a form of travel that was active and known to us as melanated people, but this was only for people who had graduated to really, really high realms of consciousness. As for instance, everybody wants to be startled now to see the reactions that I'm having with the sunlight, but you can have that type of cosmic reaction if you set your vibrations right. And I have did a lot of work to be able to find that unique connection. And that's my point, not to boast, but just to point out, yes, we as a people are gods that has been put to sleep and can do the things that we read about gods doing if we stop reading about other gods doing it and do it ourselves. Okay? That's what it's all about. And so my point being is that, yes, when he's telling you that this was an airport where people used to travel to and from, there were, and still is to this day, people that travel in the form of vessels. Has the Europeans been to the moon? I don't think so. I do not. I believe that they received information from other people that have the technology and the spiritual capability to go to the moon. I don't believe that they've been to the moon because they still show you problems with the space shuttle. It's temporal. It always has to return to the Earth. If the space shuttle could go and stay on the moon for 6 months, I'd be impressed with that. If there was more scientific proof, like other than just this stuff that you could barely see, I would want to believe that they had actually been to the moon. But I truly in my heart believe that other advanced entities is feeding them this information about this moon activity.
Of the moon, and when they were building an underground base on the moon. So years later, after the Germans built the base, they abandoned this post. And when they abandoned this post, basically they went underground. And then years later, the astronauts came here. And when they came to this specific area, what the Apollo 11 mission was about was to spy on the base, on the moon base of the Illuminati. And not just spy on this base, they were also supposed to take resources off that area. Apollo 11's mission was to do reconnaissance. Reconnaissance is that you're going to film an entire area. You're going to spy on it, basically. And you're going to find out what's there. You're going to find out what you can pull off real quick, what kind of tactics you can do through the surveillance of the area. And that's what they basically did. They were assessing what they can and cannot do. And they were assessing what was there. And so that's what this whole Apollo 11 mission was about. It was about filming the ruins, filming the resources, assessing what you can do. And so that's what basically was going on here. And what we're looking at with this structure is that it's a very huge structure, by the way. It's a two-story structure, but it's very long, it's very wide. And when you go directly into it, into what they're doing here is they're going into the front door, basically. And when you get a very good look at it, you start to see what I basically mean here. You can basically see there was a time where basically what you're looking at is the inside of an airport, if you will, but a space-age airport. There was a time where people would be, well, basically they'd be lined up over here. You have these other buildings and other rooms where people basically would have had their office, if you will. And, you know, there was more to this structure. A lot of it was destroyed, but there would have been a lot of technology around it. So by the time the Germans got to it, the Germans would have just remodeled it, you know, put some new structures on it to hold the building up and things like that. Once it was abandoned, it was just, that was it. So you'll notice some things about the walls of the building. You notice that they're very bright. You notice that when they come in with the camera, it seems like the whole thing seems to illuminate. It has a lot to do with basically the walls. The walls are made out of alabaster. Alabaster makes things glow, kind of like marble does. And so, from what I understand, this structure was a combination of alabaster and marble, and kind of like a white stone, if you will. And so that's why it has a very type of eerie glow. This is one of the astronauts walking. We believe this was Buzz, actually, with Armstrong filming. And if you take a good look, notice some things here. You can see kind of what I'm talking about. You can see how this is an old world structure with some new structures in it. But this is kind of like an old world kind of lined, if you will. It's a place where people wind up. And the more and more you get a very good look at it, you'll...
Well, my thing is, where's the real proof of that? That's just what he says. But when I look at that, I don't see that. But he can see that if he wants to, just like I said on the other one. That's what I saw as that being a sarcophagus. But nobody else has to see that, so I'm not being hypocritical. But I'm just saying there's a whole lot of stuff missing for him to just say that. I mean, because I'm sure nobody just walked out on that one little ledge right there. There's other stuff. There's a whole cavity here that you could have fell off either side. Or what did the spaceship do? Pull up and pick your ass up right here? Or seemed to me like it would land on the ground. Because if it did pick you up right here, it had to be. It didn't just hover there, did it? I mean, it's something that I missed. I don't understand what he means by that. So I'm just saying that in case somebody else is stuck too. Okay? Hold on a minute.
And you'll notice some other things. You look at these beams across right here, you'll notice that some of these beams are attached to the old structure, which is to hold it up. And you'll notice the ground is very broken up, and that has a lot to do with the destruction that the building went through. It was basically hit with, a long time ago. And you'll notice now he's filming another room, which is here, and he's about to go right into that room. And so what he's doing is that he's just walking along it, and you start to notice some rocks, blocks, and things that have been broken apart. You'll notice here also how it's one room here, rooms here. You'll notice how it looks very much like a big giant office building. And that's kind of what you got to really put into you, is that is what you're looking at. Is that you're looking at a building that had an administrative function. And even in the old world, it had an administrative function. And when the Germans took this land, they made it also into an administrative function. And then until after a while, that was pretty much it. And so that's what you're just looking at here. You're looking at a building that used to house very advanced technology, and then the Germans used it, and the Americans spied on it and walked in there and wanted to get a very good look at what's inside there. From what I understand, there was circuit boards that were left around in there. There were metal pieces as well. So basically, they collected all the circuit boards and all the metal pieces and all that type of resources they can carry back with them. Filming the rest of the structure is what they did. And pretty soon you'll see that when they're digging up these metal pieces into piles. And so you're looking at more of the structure. What he's basically doing now, he's getting more closer near the ruins of the structure. And now as you see what he's doing, take a very good look at what he's doing. He's looking at the ground because he's noticing that there's metal pieces on this ground.
The gold.
So that's what he came for.
He's still the gold.
He's looking around to see what he can pile up. Just getting a very good look at it, at the whole thing. So now you see him walking over it. And if you're wondering why they walk so smoothly over it, that has a lot to do with the uniforms they're wearing. They wear things that are about like 200 pounds, and with the shoes have a very strong adhesive, so it feels like bouncing. But they're not bouncing because of the atmosphere, they're bouncing because of the shoes that they're wearing. And if you look very good at it, you notice how the structure's missing a floor here. You notice how with this building, the entire top floor that should be like a ceiling on top of them is not there because that has been wrecked, destroyed. And so only some part is holding up in the back while the front part has been basically gutted. And so this is just more of that. You see these beams here, and then you see these archway beams that I keep mentioning it to you. You see more arch beams here, and more arch beams here. And that's just to tell you, that it was an administrative building. And people would have been lined up here, they would have been lined up here. They would have been going into another building here, getting their papers or getting prepared for flight. Then they'd come out of the building. And then if you notice, right at the very far end of this building, that's about maybe a mile off, or half a mile off, is where the beginning of the ship is, the one that Apollo 20 went after. And that's to show you what that area used to be. It basically used to be a massive space-age airport. So you're looking at some of the buildings that were left over from it, and this was one of the administrative buildings that they had. So that's more what you're looking at. If you take a very good look at it, you see how this building had levels. It was a two-story building with a lot of floors, a lot of inner floors. So basically levels of rooms, bedrooms, office buildings. Basically that's what it was basically.
All right, that's enough of that. Let's go
I just
ahead.
want to keep reiterating that because a lot of people look at this building and they'll think it's alien.
I tried to write it out with him, but he's taking too long.
So that they can basically take him out of there. And that's what Mr. Buzz right here is doing. He's basically trying to pile them all up together. And quite interesting. And the reason why it's dark there is because it's just not enough light. And this is a computer composite of what the structure looks like. If you take a very good look at it, it's very, very big. And you can see how it's just a big, massive, long, two-story administrative building, and just very, very huge, and quite interesting indeed.
Uh-oh.
And that's just to give you a very good look at what you're looking at.
Let's tell you what we're looking at.
It probably has a lot to do with the entities that are up there. And they did describe that the entities were hovering on top of their heads. So that could have something to do with that. Very, very weird indeed. And that's probably why he's filming the module right now, because he's getting worried. Okay, this is what I was talking about in terms of picking up metal fragments and circuits. Now, if you notice what he's doing, if you take a very good look at what he's doing, that's exactly what he's doing. He's collecting up circuits, he's collecting up wires, and he's collecting up metal pieces. And he's basically piling them up so that they can basically take him out of there. And that's what Mr. Buzz right here is doing. He's basically trying to pile them all up together. And quite interesting. And the reason why it's dark there is because there's just not enough light. And this is a computer composite of what the structure looks like. You take a very good look at it. It's very, very big. And you can see how it's just a big, massive, long, two-story administrative building.
These are windows.
And just very, very huge.
Look.
And
that mean human.
Quite interesting.
Look. These mean human.
And
that is windows. Humans build windows. Okay? And, that is a sign of intelligence of ancient Nile Valley.
Second floor ceiling. It's broken off.
Like the universe is you see in all the temples of Kemet. I'll show you that later.
Like blocks and stones on top of right here. That could have more of a function than we think. We could be looking at a piece of a broken off machine.
See, we got a place called.
And it's just
see that beautiful face right there?
Yeah. Very sad.
She looks like the queens of Egypt.
Because, you realize certain things. And,
so we already can see the connection.
You realize what we lost.
Even though you're going to try to deny it, I already know that.
God, we cost ourselves quite a bit. And the earth is temporary, even the planets are. None of this stuff is going to last. You're not going to see this stuff in eternity. And believe me, you don't really want to. The place is haunting, by the way. If you have the astronauts who talked about it, covertly talked about it, spoke about the feeling of being haunted, the feeling of something was on their back or on their shoulders, looking at the apparitions of the fallen angels being haunted by them. So the moon is very much haunted. So right now we're going to show you a female body that was found on the moon. And this came from Apollo 20, which was a very covert mission. And it was done between Americans and Russian astronauts. And this mission was the last known mission to the moon in terms of the American involvement of it. And this is the body that you're looking at right here. And you'll notice some things about the body is that you'll notice these tubes that are connected to her eyes and her mouth and to the center point of her head. These tubes are actually flying devices, and they are devices that are attached to the neurons of her mind, basically. They had a technology back then, a long time ago, where they were able to pilot things, almost seemingly using their mind, but they were using technology that was attached to their mind to send.
Let me break it down for you, because he don't know. Okay, I'm going to break it. See this right here? This is a bone structure of some animal, probably. I don't know, some type of biological existence. This is not plastic or PVC or anything like that. This is a natural, universal created type of tunnel or some type of path or some type of medium to pass spiritual energy through. The same type of spiritual energy that would be passed through in the blood system going through a vein. The fact that it is connected to her mouth as well as her nose, as well as if this picture showed it. This one right here that leaves this eye area and goes to the middle of her forehead and connects there on this side of her eye. It is the same synonymous type of connector that goes to her pineal gland area also. It had nothing to do with anything except for spirituality, of the awareness of her universe being transferred to her through her pineal gland, as to where she was in constant awareness of where she was at all times, what was around her at all times, and she was able to sustain herself even without the need of any type of molecular ingestion, because she was vibrating on pure light energy. That's the reason why her eyes are closed, her mouth has sustained force coming into her lips to be a source of food as well as a source of communication. You can see these things going to her nose as well, delivering her with air sustainment, life force that way, and all generated from the knowledge of her consciousness via her pineal gland. Now let's see if he tells you all that.
Basically a particle ray to operate computers that would lift the ship into the air. Believe me, you don't really want
it's
to.
All mental
the
consciousness.
place is haunting, by the way.
And
if you have the astronauts who talked about it, who covertly talked about it, spoke about the feeling of being haunted. You know, this mission was the last known mission to the moon in terms of the American involvement of it. And this is the body that you're looking at right here. And you'll notice some things about the body is that you'll notice these tubes that are connected to her eyes and her mouth and to the center point of her head. These tubes are actually flying devices, and they are devices that are attached to the neurons of her mind, basically. They had a technology back then, a long time ago, where they were able to pilot things almost seemingly using their mind, but they were using technology that was attached to their mind to send out basically a particle ray to operate computers that would lift the ship into the air. And so basically that's what you're looking at are piloting devices that are attached to her.
actually, see, it didn't work like that. See, the way it actually works is that these people are so advanced that they can make their machinery from the same spiritual formation that all manifestations are induced from, including themselves. So when you are a God entity and you know that, you can speak to your God and ask your God to give you a vessel that you can operate off of telepathy. And these vessels will be operated off of telepathy because of the fact that the vessel will be given instructions from the Creator to synchronize with your consciousness and your consciousness only. So this lady was flying that ship, like the many ships we see flying around our planet right now, through a unique symbiotic relationship that was designed with one purpose. The purpose was for her to have command of a vessel that big and be able to fly it around with as little effort as necessary for anyone to take a walk through the park. This ship became a part of her. As soon as she sat in the seat, they became one. So the universe and the ship, as well as the lady, all knew where they was at all times because of the omnipresent spiritual energy that was inside of his spiritual creator. Along with that, since all the materialism of all the manifestations were manifested from the spiritual essence of this creator, it was all one package. And it still is one package. Regardless to the different arrangement of the aggregates, it's all still a spiritual manifestation from our supreme creator. Regardless whether white or black. Only thing that differs and make the determination of how powerful or how weak you are is your conceptualizations of life, and what your conceptualizations of life make you generate. Okay? So let's keep going.
Face. And if you get a really good look at her, you'll notice her skin is very much in place. The people in the ancient world lived for a long, long time. That means that their skin texture was far more powerful than ours, meaning they didn't decay as quick as us. As they lived for thousands of years, it would also take thousands of years for them to decay.
Yeah, he's gonna
and so that's why
mention
the
the fact
skin
that
is
she's
still intact.
melanated.
Also, the fact that where she was, it was highly cold. She actually was frozen to death. So when you add that in,
see, this is the thing about it. That's an assumption, because when she went there, since nobody knows when she went there, maybe it wasn't cold. Maybe she could have froze after she was dead. My point being is that if he want to give you some proven facts about what's going on, I wish he'd tell you the fact that she had braids in her hair and that she is an African looking woman. For some reason, Nobody seemed to think that was important to mention. You know, melanated is the word of choice, but just for you people out there that don't understand what that means, for some reason they keep overlooking the fact that this lady is highly melanated and has braids in her hair, which would suggest that black people is flying huge spaceships like this through our galaxy. No one wants to deal with that. But be that as it may,
in there,
it will be
pretty much you can see why her skin is very much attached. And there's other things you'll notice about her. If you notice, the rims around her hair are quite curly, and you'll notice some of that there, and you'll notice some in the back shot. Basically, those are braids, and she had braided hair. And if you take a pretty good look at her, you'll notice that her facial features resemble someone of quite great beauty.